99% of Chevy owners ignore factory systems I see saving engines, transmissions, and batteries every week in the shop. These aren't optional features. They're built-in protections Chevy never explains. Use them and your truck lasts longer. Ignore them and repairs pile up fast. And today, I get to show you the 13 secret functions, and number 7 will definitely blow your mind. Secret function number 1, remote window roll down using the key fob. Most Chevy owners never discover this because it isn't advertised and rarely explained, but it's a factory-built function, not a trick. On many Chevrolet models, pressing and holding the unlock button on the key fob rolls down all windows automatically. This is controlled by the body control module and has been part of Chevy's electrical logic for years. Chevy didn't add this for convenience alone, it exists for thermal management. When a vehicle sits in direct sun, interior temperatures can exceed 140 degrees Fahrenheit interior heat. That heat doesn't just make the cabin uncomfortable, it stresses plastics, touchscreen modules, wiring insulation, and forces the AIR conditioning system to work harder during startup. By venting hot air before you even open the door, the system reduces the initial heat load on the cabin. That shortens compressor runtime, lowers electrical strain at startup, and improves long-term electronics reliability. I've seen this make a noticeable difference in how hard the AC has to work on hot days. This feature is deliberately safeguarded. The windows stop immediately if you release the button or open a door. Nothing is uncontrolled. Once you start using it regularly, especially in summer, it feels less like a hidden feature and more like something Chevy owners should have been told about from day one. Secret function number 2, automatic door relock protection. This is one of those Chevy features people complain about because they don't understand it. You unlock the car, walk away for a moment, come back, and the doors are locked again. Many owners assume the key fob is glitching or the locks are failing. They aren't. On many Chevrolet models, the body control module is programmed with automatic relock protection. If the vehicle is unlocked but no door is opened within a short time window, the system locks the doors again automatically. This is not random behavior. It's deliberate. Chevy designed this to prevent accidental unlocks. Key fobs get pressed in pockets, bags shift, children play with buttons. Without relock logic, vehicles would be left unlocked far more often than owners realize, especially in busy car parks or residential areas. I've seen plenty of theft cases where this exact system prevented a break-in because the car relocked itself before anyone noticed. That's why Chevy prioritizes security over convenience here. The system is simple, reliable, and consistent. If a door opens, relock is canceled. If it doesn't, the car protects itself. Once you understand this behavior, it stops feeling like a fault and starts feeling reassuring. Secret function number 3, emergency engine start with a dead key fob. This is one of the most useful Chevy functions almost nobody knows about, and I've seen drivers call roadside assistance for no reason because of it. When the key fob battery dies, most people assume the car is finished. It isn't. On many Chevy models with push-button start, the key fob contains a passive transponder chip that does not rely on the battery. Even if the fob is completely dead, the vehicle can still read that chip at very close range. Chevy designed the system so that when the fob is held directly against the start button or designated backup reader area, the car can authenticate the key and allow the engine to start. No battery power, no wireless signal, just passive RFID communication. This exists for one reason: to prevent drivers from being stranded. I've seen this save people in car parks, airports, and petrol stations where a dead fob would otherwise turn into a tow truck call. Many owners think this is an emergency override or a hack. It isn't. It's factory security logic and has been part of Chevy's push-start design for years. Once you know this, a dead fob battery stops being a crisis and becomes a minor inconvenience you can deal with later. Secret function number 4, power window. Memory reset after battery disconnect. This one sends people straight to the dealership, even though nothing is actually broken. After a battery change or disconnect, many Chevy owners notice their one-touch window stop working. Auto up disappears. Auto down disappears. Sometimes the window even behaves erratically. That's not a failed motor. It's not a bad switch. It's not a regulator. Chevy power windows rely on learned position limits stored in the control module. Those limits tell the system where fully open and fully closed are, so it can apply the right amount of force and stop instantly if something is obstructing the glass. When battery power is lost, that memory is intentionally erased for safety. Here's what most owners aren't told. Chevy requires a manual relearn procedure. You fully lower the window and hold the switch, then fully raise it and hold again. That's it. The system relearns its limits and auto function returns. I've seen dealers charge diagnostic fees or suggest motor replacement for this. Completely unnecessary. This design exists to prevent pinch injuries and motor damage. Once you understand the logic, it stops being frustrating and starts making sense. Secret function number 5, hidden infotainment system. Soft reset. This is one of the most useful Chevy features nobody tells owners about, and I've seen it prevent a lot of unnecessary electrical problems. When the infotainment screen freezes, lags, or refuses to respond, most people immediately think about disconnecting the battery. That's the worst thing you can do. Chevy infotainment systems are computers, and like any computer, they occasionally glitch. Chevy engineers anticipated this and built in a safe soft reset specifically to clear temporary software errors without disturbing vehicle electronics. On many Chevrolet models, holding the power or volume knob for several seconds forces the infotainment system to reboot. The screen goes dark, the system restarts, and temporary bugs clear themselves. No battery disconnect, no warning lights, no relearn cycles triggered elsewhere in the vehicle. I've seen owners disconnect batteries to fix a frozen screen and end up with steering warnings, transmission relearns, and window memory loss that never needed to happen. Secret function number 6, transmission adaptive learning logic. This is one of the most misunderstood Chevy behaviors, and it's why so many drivers think something is wrong after a battery change, transmission service, or software update. The transmission starts shifting differently, sometimes firmer, sometimes slower, and people immediately assume damage. What's actually happening is adaptive learning. Modern Chevy transmissions constantly learn driver behavior, load patterns, and shift timing to balance performance, fuel economy, and component protection. When battery power is lost or certain services are performed, that learned data gets reset on purpose. The transmission doesn't forget how to work. It goes back to a baseline map. From there, it relearns based on how the vehicle is driven. Light throttle, steady cruising, towing, stop-and-go traffic all reshape shift behavior over time. This is why identical trucks feel different to drive. I've seen owners authorize unnecessary transmission work because the first few days felt off. Usually, 50 to 150 miles of normal driving is enough for shifts to smooth out. Once the learning completes, the transmission behaves exactly as designed, tailored to how you drive. Secret function #7. Electric power steering relearn behavior. This is another Chevy behavior that gets mistaken for a fault, especially after an alignment, battery replacement, or suspension work. The steering suddenly feels lighter or heavier or slightly off-center, and owners assume something wasn't tightened correctly. What's actually happening is electric power steering relearn. On modern Chevys, steering assist isn't fixed, it's calculated. The system uses steering angle sensors, vehicle speed, and yaw data to determine how much assist to apply. When power is lost or components are serviced, those reference values are intentionally reset. Chevy does this for safety. Instead of locking in old data that may no longer be accurate, the system gradually recalibrates itself during normal driving. As you drive straight roads, make gentle turns, and operate at typical speeds, the steering module relearns center position and assist levels. During this period, the wheel can feel slightly different. That doesn't mean the rack is failing, it means the system is rebuilding its reference map. I've seen people approve unnecessary steering work or return for repeat alignments because they didn't give the system time to settle. In most cases, 20 to 50 miles of normal driving is all it takes. Once relearned, steering feel stabilizes and returns to normal. This isn't inconsistency. It's a protective system making sure assist is accurate, predictable, and safe long-term. Secret function #8. Automatic headlight and wiper logic link. This is one of those Chevy behaviors people argue with because it feels too sensitive. The headlights come on earlier than expected. They stay on longer than you think they should. Some drivers assume the light sensor is faulty. It isn't. On many Chevrolet models, the headlight system is linked to the windshield wipers and vehicle logic, not just ambient light. When the wipers are active, the system assumes reduced visibility, even if it isn't dark yet. Rain, spray, fog, and road mist all reduce how visible your vehicle is to others long before it feels dark to you. Chevy designed this to be predictive, not reactive. Instead of waiting until conditions are already dangerous, the system turns on the headlights early, so your vehicle is visible from a distance. That improves safety in poor weather and reduces rear-end collisions, especially on highways. Drivers often think the system is malfunctioning because it doesn't behave like a simple light sensor. In reality, it's layering multiple inputs to make a better decision. I've seen owners disable auto headlights because they didn't understand this logic. That's a mistake. Once you know why the system behaves this way, it stops feeling annoying and starts feeling intentional. Secret function, #9. Hidden tire pressure display locations. A lot of Chevy owners assume their vehicle doesn't show individual tire pressures because they never see it on the main dashboard. That assumption is wrong, and it leads to unnecessary shop visits and ignored maintenance. On many Chevrolet models, individual tire pressure readings are available digitally, just not where most people expect them. Chevy deliberately hides this data inside the driver information menus accessed through steering wheel controls or the infotainment system. It's a design choice to keep the main cluster clean, not because the information isn't there. Once you locate it, you can see real-time SI for all 4 tires without pulling out a gauge or driving to a shop. That matters more than people realize. Underinflated tires reduce fuel economy, soften steering response, increase braking distance, and accelerate tire wear. Overinflated tires reduce grip and ride quality. I've seen owners complain about poor MPG, vague steering, or uneven tire wear while driving on tires that were 6 to 10 psi off, simply because they didn't know the display existed. Chevy includes this feature to encourage routine checks without adding clutter. Once you start checking pressures digitally every few weeks, handling feels more consistent, tires last longer, and fuel economy improves. Secret function, #10, driving mode memory, enforced default logic. This is one of those Chevy behaviors people call forgetful, when in reality, it's deliberate protection logic. You switch into sport, tahoe, or off-road mode, shut the truck off, start it again, and it's back in normal mode. Many drivers assume the system isn't saving their preference. It is. It's choosing not to obey it. Chevy programs many vehicles to default to normal mode on startup to protect the drivetrain, emission systems, and transmission during warm-up. Cold fluid, cold clutches, and cold sensors behave very differently than when fully warmed. Starting in an aggressive mode increases wear at startup. I've seen drivers complain about this while unknowingly saving themselves transmission issues down the road. Sport and tail modes are designed for situational use, not permanent startup behavior. Chevy wants the engine and transmission to stabilize first. This also keeps emissions consistent during the most sensitive phase of operation. Once you understand this logic, it stops feeling like the truck is ignoring you. It's preserving itself so performance stays consistent years later. This is one of those cases where Chevy chose longevity over convenience. Secret function, #11, remote start engine protection limits. A lot of Chevy owners think remote start is just a convenience feature. It isn't. It's a controlled engine protection mode, and Chevy is very strict about what the vehicle is allowed to do while it's active. When you remote start your Chevy, the engine does not run the same way it does when you're inside the vehicle. RPM is capped. Throttle input is locked out. Transmission engagement is disabled. Even cabin electronics are limited. Chevy does this to protect the engine during the most vulnerable phase of operation. Cold start. Oil hasn't fully circulated yet. Clearances are tighter. Emission systems ARE cold. That's why remote start times are limited, and why the engine shuts off when a door opens without the key present. It's not a glitch, it's a safeguard. I've seen people complain that remote start doesn't stay on long enough. That restriction is exactly what prevents unintentional engine abuse. Once you understand this, remote start stops being about comfort and starts looking like a longevity feature. Secret function, #12. Battery saver/sleep mode for long parking periods. This is one of the most practical Chevy features almost nobody knows exists. And it's why some vehicles sit for weeks and start perfectly, while others end up with a dead battery. Chevy engineers know modern cars draw power even when parked, so they built in battery saver logic to limit that drain. When a Chevy is locked and left undisturbed for an extended period, the vehicle gradually enters a low power sleep mode. Non-essential modules shut down. Background communication slows. Keyless polling reduces. In some models, this can also be triggered more aggressively through specific lock sequences or settings, especially useful for airport parking, vacations. Owners who don't know this feature exists often replace batteries unnecessarily. I've seen cars towed in for parasitic drain that were doing exactly what they were designed to do. This system prevents deep discharge, extends battery life, and works quietly in the background. Once you understand this behavior, long-term parking stops being a gamble. Secret function, #13. Interior lighting delay and auto shutoff customization. This is one of the simplest Chevy features with the biggest everyday payoff, and most owners never realize they can control it. Interior lights aren't just on or off. They're governed by timing logic designed to balance convenience and battery protection. On many Chevrolet models, interior lighting behavior can be adjusted through vehicle settings. Fade duration, door-activated lighting, and auto shutoff timing are all configurable, even though Chevy rarely points this out clearly. This matters more than people think. Interior lights are one of the most common causes of slow battery drain, especially during short trips or frequent stops. Chevy built in auto shutoff logic to prevent dead batteries. I've seen owners complain about lights turning off too fast or staying on too long, not realizing both behaviors are adjustable. Once tuned properly, cabin lighting feels intentional and refined. This feature isn't flashy, but it reflects Chevy's attention to daily usability, quietly protecting the battery in the background. Now, if this just showed you something your Chevy has been doing quietly all along, don't scroll. Subscribe and comment on which Chevy you drive.